You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It is now time. It is high at 9. It is Tuesday, September 6th. It's actually also National Read a Book Day. And thank you for joining us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all of your social media platforms. We're live Monday through Friday on YouTube. And you can listen to us on audio only on Clubhouse. And if you're on Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story presented. But without further ado, let's pay a quick bill and get right back to the news.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, that's right, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great start of their morning. Today, we're going to be starting off with the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte. That's right. When he's not doing babysitting jobs, you can find him here at the High at 9 News, or every once in a while, when we're not on lockdowns, you can find him at TEDx, maybe talking that shit. But nonetheless, where you can always find him is out on the field, where he practices his backpedaling drills on safe banking. Yeah, that's right. And if you are on the stage and speaking, please mute your mic when you are not speaking. And nonetheless, but we have Rico Lamitte.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. My story today is pulled from several Chicago media outlets and comes with a slight trigger warning for those sensitive to mild descriptions of graphic violence. A man was shot and killed Labor Day morning after allegedly attacking a security guard with an axe at cannabis dispensary in Greektown, in the West Loop of Chicago. Per police and eyewitness accounts, around 10:05 a.m., the incident occurred just outside of the front door as Zenleaf was opening its dispensary doors to the public for an expected busy day of Labor Day sales. A man with an axe allegedly got into an argument with an armed security guard while waiting in line to enter the Greektown dispensary. And unsatisfied with the way that things were going verbally, the man swung an axe at the security guard, hitting him in the leg. Left at this point, without many alternative paths to conflict resolution, the security guard shot the man. The alleged aggressor was taken to Stroger Hospital of Cook County, where he was pronounced dead, police said, and the 37-year-old security guard was taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital with lacerations to his left leg and was listed in good condition. Eyewitness and Zenleaf customer Skylar Valentino spoke with CBS News Chicago, saying that he came back to the scene in shock after seeing swarms of rescue vehicles headed towards the dispensary. Just minutes before opening, he saw a man standing outside the shop with a blue backpack and on the ground near him, and didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, I walked right by. At first, I thought the backpack was just dumped there, and I was kind of like, who would do that? It's a great fucking quote. Additional street witnesses suggested to CBS Chicago the argument was possibly the result of an unhappy customer recalled seeing the man and recalled seeing the man who attacked the security guard standing outside the door with blue backpack described earlier before the assault, and a pair of scissors were also spotted spilled out of the bag in front of the shop on the sidewalk right after the altercation. A Zenleaf spokesman released a statement following the incident via email that read, "This morning outside Zenleaf on Halstead, an individual attacked a contracted third-party security guard with a weapon outside the dispensary. Both individuals were taken to hospitals with serious injuries. Zenleaf will be closed the remainder of Monday, September 5th, to allow the Chicago Police Department to conduct their investigation of this incident." The company's owners said the incident was not a robbery, and neighboring businesses said the dispensary is usually quiet. Having lived in Chicago myself for 12 years and witnessing a sad rise in violence over the last decade or so from afar, I got to say I'm surprised we haven't heard more stories of violence involving massive uptick in legal retail stores biting into the profits and, quite frankly, on the turf of alternative sources. And I know the dude's dead now, so he can't tell his side of the story, but I'm sure there's much more to it than this. I mean, if you're upset, the marked up mid-shelf booth pack you bought was half a gram short, there's a better way to go about handling grievances than pulling an axe out of your backpack and going full West Loop William Wallace on armed store employees. Retail dispensaries are some of the most heavily armed, guarded locations, and many of their high security professionals are ex-law enforcement, military, and all are well-trained to increase their own chances of survival in situations just like this. I'm just glad more people weren't hurt. But remember, people, hatchets are never a match for ratchets. This is Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street, stating for the High 9 News Hour.
Hold on, Rico. I thought it was that ratchets carry hatchets.
Ratchets for sure don't carry hatchets. But this is something that I think that we need to be in consideration of because mental illness is a issue. Obviously, it's a problem that we can't see. And when we're dealing with cannabis, there are a great deal of people that are utilizing cannabis as a medicine to replace a pharmaceutical for different types of mental illness. And, you know, real life, I tell when I do training with staff, I'm like, you never know what somebody's going through. So be conscious of that. But, you know, in this is just kind of another conversation to be had in regards to making sure that when people are getting, you know, medical advice, that they're getting it from a doctor, because honestly, somebody that shows up with a hatchet to a place that they know there's an armed guard, that's a mental illness. You know what I mean? Like that's not like a I'm fucking pissed, I'm gonna punch somebody and I got a little rage. You know what I mean? Like I could see that.
Well, before we get like any other details, I just wanted to halt it right there, because we don't know much more about. I want to see the video of what happened on this from CCTV, because it could have been that. This is Chicago, like shit like that happens, like straight
shit
up
goes down in Chicago, murder capital of the United States of America.
Like shit goes down like that. Like I want to hear like more details from people, like because the people that were standing in line, they said that he was just a disgruntled customer. And the dude that actually spoke to the news, he was like, yeah, he had a bag on the ground. I didn't really think much of it. I don't know. There's more. I think there's more details that we're missing here. I agree with you.
What state was this in, Rico? What state? This is in Illinois. Zenleaf.
Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a video of it.
I mean, years ago, I used to be a reporter, and we would cover stuff all the time of just the most bizarre robberies, burglaries. I remember a guy attacking a woman with a hammer. He didn't have mental issues. It was just the first, weapon that he had as an option to him.
If you're a Chicago resident, if you were in the West Loop where this guy is in Greektown, like you ain't got no trees. What the fuck you got a hatchet for?
Well, they're easy to conceal, Rico. I mean, come on, you just stick that under the jacket.
Everybody has guns in Chicago.
Awesome.
Like there's no guns technically allowed, but everybody has fucking guns in Chicago, or fucking knives, switchblades, and shit like that. Like
you just walk into a local hardware store.
It's easy to get a hatchet.
I think what Nichole West was saying is accurate. That we don't know what the mental health issue or what he was dealing with personally around this. Right. And for him to bring a hatchet in his bag to the line up to get weed, like it was not a weapon of opportunity. He obviously took some planning to prepare to go stand in line and confront whatever.
So you think this was premeditated, Nichole?
I mean, it's not like it
leg.
wasn't a weapon of opportunity. He wasn't in a kitchen.
I think it's absolutely a weapon of opportunity. A hatchet feels nice and easy in your book bag. It's easy to carry around.
Well, the fact that you're carrying a hatchet in your
I got a hatchet in my garage right now.
Yeah, it's a garage. You're not cutting down. You're not cutting down any trees. You're not cutting down.
Yeah, but I use it because it's small and nice and it's handy and it's easy to carry.
That doesn't
And if you need to chop someone's fingers off, you have the ability to do it real fast.
I can hold that next to my bed too for criminals. Doesn't mean it's the best weapon of choice, but I can wield it.
But
remember,
like Gretchen's saying,
hold on, we have Dr. Felicia from Clubhouse who wants to say something. Dr. Felicia, what do you have to share within this?
Good morning, everybody. You can be both. You can have a mental condition and premeditate a crime. Both can be occurring at the same time.
Yeah, I just want to be cautious before we say it's anything mental health before hearing anything else. Like,
and I want to, Rico.
My wife is a mental health professional, and we got to be really careful about that because that's why they're blaming all this gun violence on mental health. Like, that's not necessarily a mental health issue.
Rico,
it's a gun issue.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but was there more of a crime than just attacking the security guard? He wasn't trying to rob the place or something, was he? No, he just attacked the guy.
Well, he was allegedly a disgruntled customer. Several witnesses that were in line at the opening of the store said that he got into an argument with the security guard, and it seemed like he wasn't a disgruntled customer.
But I'm not saying he went in there with his hatchet trying to rob the joint is the point, right?
There were no cherry trees in that in Zen Leaf.
Well, Gretchen said, she's a reporter, and it's like the people, like, you run for these headlines. These are hot headlines, so they're going to hit the news, and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, it was an axe or a hatchet, whatever. But the thing is, it's like mental health is a real issue, especially people coming to dispensaries, and it's like exacerbated recently. So I think like we should all try to remember that. And if this gentleman was traveling with a hatchet in his backpack, and there's no trees around, then there may be some other things going on. But maybe he's not feeling safe. But regardless, I think, mental health is the big. I mean, trying to be kind to people and understanding, but also stay out of danger.
Will a hatchet fit in your purse? Will a hatchet fit in your purse, Gretchen?
Yeah, big enough purse. Yes, you can put a hatchet.
We are at time on that headline. Thank you.
Wasn't there a famous nurse named Hatchet?
That very fun interaction. Just want to be very clear, Rico, I was not stating that he had mental illness. I said it sounds like it. And so that's just, to me, when I see somebody going through that and utilizing a hatchet to attack a security guard that did nothing, it just sounds like there's something else going on. And with that said, we'll go ahead and go to our next correspondent, Mr. Jason Beck. Jason is the longest running retailer in the history of cannabis and the member of any political party that might piss you off. Our very own Kaiser Brose. Jason, what do you have for us today?
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Nichole. Hope everyone is having a fabulous day. Today, my story comes out of the UK, where there's a bunch of blokes doing bullshit. The Glasgow police uncover a massive cannabis cultivation in the making in the Gorbals. An industrial-sized cannabis cultivation in the making has been discovered at a commercial premise in the Gorbals area. Police officers acting under a warrant raided the premises on Moffat Street on August 19th and recovered 600 cannabis plants worth an estimated street value of 120,000 pounds. It's believed the cultivation was in its early stages, with growing rooms still being prepared inside. Over 600 unused bags of soil worth, get ready for this, 10,000 pounds of dirt bags were also recovered that have now been redistributed for use in schools and community gardens and allotments across the city. Inspector Sinead Smith, Gorbalis Police Station, said, industrial-sized cannabis cultivations are used by criminal gangs who take advantage of some of the most vulnerable people in our society and use the money from these cultivations to fund other criminal activities. Being able to disrupt this activity at its early stages is an excellent result, and being able to bring some added benefits to community groups across Glasgow is a real bonus, he says. Sergeant Gary Boone, community policing team, Gorbal's police station, said the premises had potential to be one of the largest cultivations they had ever seen. Sergeant Boone added, there were other growing rooms being prepared inside that would have significantly increased its capacity. This early discovery has serious impact on the group's ability to operate. And he also says, it was information from the community that led us to the discovery. It is vital that we work together with a local community to tackle the supply and distribution of drugs, and we would urge anyone with information about drug crimes in the area to contact police via 101 or anonymously to Crime Stoppers online or by calling 0800-555-111. Inquiries are ongoing with regard to those responsible for this cultivation.
Did you just list the snitch line, Beck?
I did. That is the UK snitch line for the Glass Glow Police Department.
Crime.
Yes.
You forgot to list the international code.
Yeah, it was in. Well, I'm not giving the international code because I don't support snitching. I think, these guys should have
international G code it comes with a lowercase g, doesn't it?
I mean, first of all, if any of you guys look at the actual article and you see the picture of the police, they're posing in a U-Haul truck full of dirt bags of soil. Okay, with thumbs up and shit, and these guys look like the biggest knobs, and knobs is a British term for fucking douche, basically.
Wankers.
Yes.
I love how you keep saying his 10,000 pounds of dirt bags.
Yes, I heart dirt bags, by the way, just for the record.
Soil.
Dirt pot on it.
I
think it's cool to do it to the people. Like, I thought that was cool. I'm like, hey, redistribute.
I knew you would
soil.
think. I knew you would say that, Liz. I as soon as I read the story, I was like, Liz is totally going to say, I'm so glad that the dirt bags went to the community.
Yeah,
big advertisement for Canna-Terra. I've never heard of that specific version, but that's a Canna product. Canna is one of the largest manufacturers of hydroponic equipment, and so if you look at that picture, it's all Canna. So they were running like some of the most expensive dirt in the game. So the fact that they actually priced
Canna
it
is expensive.
Kind of legit. Canna's expensive as fuck.
Canna's expensive as fuck, and they're super strategic with people that are allowed to sell their products.
Yeah, I've never seen the Terra dirt that way. So
you think it's an ad? You think there's a fucking puff piece for fucking Canna?
So you believe that it was 10,000 pounds of dirt, and when I say 10,000 pounds, I'm referring to currency,
UK pounds.
Not actual weight.
Yeah.
These guys look
like it was like 10,000 pounds of stacked up dirt bags.
No. 10,000 pounds as far as the numerical
Oh.
value. And that just shows you the high rate of inflation that is going on in the United States, but not also in the UK. Because if you look at those bags of dirt, it looks like there's probably only like 30 to 50 bags of dirt in the U-Haul truck. And they're claiming that that's going to cost 10,000 pounds. I mean, inflation is going through the roof in the UK. No wonder they had a Brexit.
Yeah, these guys. Shut up, man.
Inflation is global right now. It's global.
Thank you, Dr. Felicia.
The weird things about this photo, man, these guys look like they're soccer game paramedics. Number one, they don't look
so that's 400 bags of dirt.
Exposed? You see,
that's definitely not 400 bags in the picture.
At the rate that it costs per bag, if there was 400 bags of dirt, is what, 10,000 pounds?
Yeah, because that dude on the left has 7 bags stacked up behind him,
and I'm going to assume that there's another 7 bags stacked behind that. You know what I'm saying? So let's just call it 15. Let's just call it 15.
Yeah. I'd venture to say there's less than 100 bags in there, man.
Heavy tax on there, man. Shoot.
I wonder if they did what United States law enforcement does, where they consider all cannabis, any part of cannabis, and they just weigh it and they quantify everything at $25 a gram. I'm willing to bet that they weighed those dirt bags and just quantified those at like 25 pounds.
All right,
per gram.
I back out of this statement. Getting that dirt to the UK would cost almost 3 times as much. So it's like 200 bags of dirt, like 177.
Still,
yes.
There's no way there's 200 dirt bags on the back of that truck.
That might be 200 bags. That might be 200 bags.
You think there's 200 bags in that truck?
That might
Look at the picture. Look at the picture.
It's 200 bags is a pallet you can fit 100 bags, so 2 pallets is
There's not even a
200
quarter
bags.
of a pallet in that picture.
You're only looking at one picture.
They only showed me one picture.
I know, but that's what I'm
And
saying.
they're
like,
posing like that was the bust. Like, hey guys, we did this. Woo-hoo-hoo, 10,000 pounds of dirt.
Well, I mean, they had weed too. Why wouldn't they put pictures in front? Anyway, it's not
I understand.
relevant.
I'm with
Let's
you.
move
I'm with
on.
you.
The
I'm
story
with you on
the
this.
story's only kind of interesting, but the can of dirt is interesting to me to find out that it would cost almost $60 a bag to get there.
So dirt bags are more expensive in the UK.
Way more
huh?
expensive to get those bitches to the UK.
Share the dirt bags.
Yes, that's right.
It's gonna be some heady fucking community garden wheat or vegetables.
Seriously, dude.
That's like really good dirt. Like that's really, really good dirt.
Would you call that? Would you call that topsoil?
Shut up.
You think
I
Big
love
Mike,
that. It's
you think Big
soil,
Mike is
not
taking
dirt.
notes?
Yes,
Big
soil.
Mike is taking notes on advertising.
Big Mike
Oh,
doesn't
yes.
take notes. He would have to learn how to write.
He would have someone taking notes for him.
He's got a scribe for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's keep this party moving.
You're
All
up,
right,
Rico.
so up next, this business, agriculture, and efficiency specialist has over 12 years in industry experience and is our very own in-house dirtbag expert. Comes to the stage next, the bullshit busting data self-described bitch herself, Nichole West. What you got for us today?
I am a dirtbag expert, both figuratively and emotionally, I feel like. But yeah, so my headline today is actually coming out of New Jersey, and this comes as no surprise to me. I will start the conversation by saying the most important thing that you can do as an operator in this space when it comes to being able to create a sustainable business is train your staff well. And we'll start this conversation with that, and we'll it with what happens when you don't. So moldy weed, mystery buyers, New Jersey pot sellers ran afoul of the state rules. So this headline actually comes out of Bloomberg, and it says dozens of alleged violations before recreational marijuana sales begin. So there were apparently tons of violations over the past 2 years, and it sounds like a lot of them were with some of the larger companies. And some of these violations, oh my gosh, they really just scream, we don't know shit about shit of what we're doing. So while some of the biggest U.S. marijuana companies were preparing to join New Jersey's newly legal recreational market, several were running afoul of state security and safety rules for their medical weed operations, documents obtained by Bloomberg show. One cultivation site had 50 jars of cannabis just go missing. One medical dispensary had exceptionally moldy weed on hand. And one staff member at a store said they're having a hard time with all the fractions. And they goofed about a dozen patients' orders on the tracking log. The alleged transactions show how pot companies and the state regulators are challenged by the hodgepodge rules and enforcement for the drug that is federally outlawed, yet still a big business in the U.S. Exclusive documents obtained by Bloomberg under New Jersey's Open Public Records Act show that the state's Cannabis Regulatory Commission issued citations to 7 companies from January 2020 through mid-April of 2022. When marijuana sales began from medical to recreational, there were a total of 54 alleged violations. Still, the companies with violations, including the publicly traded Verano Holdings Corp., surprise, surprise, Curaleaf, and Ascend Wellness, won the approval of recreational cannabis shops. It was a rocky start. On opening day, April 21st, the sellers were among 5 companies that started drawing a collected of $360,000 in fines regarding hours. Okay. I tell clients this all the time. 1 minute over the time can get you a $10,000 fine. And this is proof that that sort of stuff is happening. And anybody who's not paying attention, the software is tracking you. You're literally rocking your process and reporting your transgressions. So some of the rules that have been violated in May of 2021, a retailer faced $62,000 in fines from the Nevada regulators after it reported a sale exceeding 1 ounce. In New Jersey, dispensaries flagged 10 such overages, the documentation shows, but no monetary penalties were enacted because the fines weren't a part of New Jersey's law until April. So apparently these fines that they were racking up weren't actually signed into law yet. So they were not fined until the law passed, but then the fines came through, which I think is kind of interesting. I didn't know that they could retroactively do that, but it's the government. So my favorite part, the hard time with fractions. Of the 80 pages recorded spanning over the 28 months, some errors of large and small amounts were often repeated. Many were caught by the state investigators who often monitor shops like casinos via video. The most frequent alleged violation occurred at Verano's Zen Leaf, which operates in Lawrence, Elizabeth, and Neptune. Verano was cited 20 times when selling medical cannabis only. On 3 occasions, state investigators watched Zen Leaf store video document workers fraudulently using security access cards. At least twice, Zen Leaf allegedly sold people whose names weren't even in their medical registry. So perhaps they weren't even of age. Who knows? If you look back through your list of errors, you can see that your staff regularly neglects to enter patient purchases into the registry. An investigator wrote to Verano. The manager responded and was puzzled by this math. In April of 2021, an investigator ordered the destruction of 127 pounds of Verano's inventory because some of it may have been swept up from the floor. Sorry, I had to take a fucking moment for that. You guys are sweeping your fucking weed up off the floor and putting it in jars, and they caught you on camera, and then they told you that you had to pull the weed. But it sounds like they might not have actually destroyed it. So these are just a few of the issues that have been happening. Currently, there was a few issues when it came to the marijuana sales as well. My favorite part about this thing is the fact that a majority of these violations were with some of the largest companies who all just received their licenses. And we haven't heard really much about some of these issues. I'm super curious to see what everybody in the audience and all of the other correspondents have to say about this. But it doesn't surprise me at all. And I will say training, so fucking important. And this is just proof that when you just open your stores and you don't spend the time to make sure your staff knows what the hell's going on, that you are bound to set yourself up for some liabilities. And I'm Nichole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
Compliance is key.
I mean, this is Zen Leaf. This is the same store. This is the same sales chain that was in Rico's story.
Yep.
Oh,
like I said, I thought
bro, they suck.
I think it was very interesting. Like from my story, Zen Leaf is the same fucking chain.
Full on floor scores.
Maybe we should just send them a bill.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, this is advertisement.
Yeah, we're advertising them now.
I don't know. We're advertising that you might get fucking hit with a hatchet and they might sell you moldy, shitty weed. I don't know if they want to give us money for that.
Get your fraction game up. Get your fraction.
Yeah, they sound like they got some issues.
Bro, okay. When I train people, I'll walk into facilities, and now California is not as big of a deal because everything's pre-packed. But when places are deli style, the amount of people that don't understand, like, okay, anybody on the stage or in the audience, besides Jason Beck, because I've asked this question 1,000 times, know how many grams exactly is in a pound?
Grams in a pound. The street.
448.
The street.
Nope, street? Not 448. You're a drug dealer, Liz.
456.
Nope, not 456. You're a
454. Sorry.
Nope, still not right because that's not science. You're a science person.
I know. I'm like
453.592. It's because we took a metric measurement and an American standard measurement and we fucking jammed them into each other because we've been buying and selling drugs internationally for so long. So 453.592. Nobody actually knows these numbers. Nobody actually does the fucking math. I've trained thousands of staff members. Once somebody has been able to answer this question. Once.
So do you think that the cannabis industry has a chance to push the rest of America into the metric system like we've been saying?
Bro, metric all the way. The American standard system is trash.
We really should. We should be selling weed in kilos and not in pounds. Or if we're not going to sell it, we should sell it by half kilos and
kilos and grams.
Yeah, 1,000 grams, 2,000 grams. It's fucking basic, common sense fucking math. Anybody can do it.
Anybody who's selling in pounds, fuck you.
If you're having problems with fractions, just go to the metric system.
It's so easy. That way. How many grams are in a quarter of a kilo? 250. How many grams are in a quarter of a pound?
Well, I thought the
112.
No,
Put,
bro, it's not. It's not.
But I thought that was like the street pound, so you got like the extra, you know.
No,
flour
no,
to make
no.
it.
A street pound
A street pound is 448,
An
which is
eighth
112
perfectly broken
times
down
4.
all the way up. And so you're getting jacked
Okay.
5 grams every time. I've audited facilities. One of my first corporate jobs in cannabis, I audited 2.5 years of their time. They lost $77,000 in 2 years, 5 grams at a time on purchases, because they bought pounds at 448 instead of 454 or 453, 592.
You know,
That's
when I
how
was on
bad
the
that-
medical cannabis task force in San Francisco, we had members of law enforcement that were there, and they were asking, how would you determine between a street weed and medical weed? And I would tell them by the weight, because in medical weed, we were only dealing with real pounds, which is 454, and all street weed, you always know, is always 448. Pretty easy, pretty basic math to determine that,
So you,
guys.
so you gave him you gave
What?
law enforcement the keys to victory, Jason.
Definitely not the keys to victory, but they needed something.
Guap from the audience has a very good question. How much for an eighth of Verano floor weed hand milled with a hatchet?
I think
Finally
the
mint.
price would vary depending on how many pieces of hair are attached to the bud.
Is
and
there
what's left on
blood
the
in
floor.
your
The mold, the
Ew.
fraction of mold. That's they just can't figure
I
it
wonder
out.
if that dude knew his fractions.
Dude,
Wait,
I
hold
just,
on, but he's selling it at 2.3 because that's what they think an eighth is in Chicago.
He thinks he's in Ohio selling
Ohio.
tents.
they're
took
just
half a leg.
racking up the bucks there if that's what the eighth costs.
Well, I mean, in all essence, couldn't dust just be considered like cutter bud for Keef and just
Oh,
like
man.
extra crystals? You know what I mean? Just douse that fucking bud
dude,
in
no
there.
lie. When I
add
had
some
a
extra weight.
dispensary, the one
Oh,
time,
man. We're definitely at time on that headline, so I will have to go ahead and end the fun. I'm sorry, guys, but that was a great story. I think it's super interesting, and yeah, the follow through on what's going on with Verano, I think, is kind of funny to watch. But with that, we'll go ahead and get our relight going. Thoughts and opinions and general shade thrown at the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding legal status of substance of any country, area, territory, or authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not apply, constitute the endorsement by us, the expression of any opinion whatsoever, any of the speakers or anyone on stage. If you're an easily offended person, the show's probably not for you. Also, fuck off.
Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX. Located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you like to get high at 9 for 10% off your first order.
Up next, she splits her days and nights between cooking delicious treats in the kitchen and asking the toughest questions of all the politicians of how high they're going to get and when legalization is going to actually come down. She's also a redheaded, feisty conservative with Mayflower roots and unhealthy love of safe banking and keeps a hatchet in her purse. You better watch your back when you're around her. Coming up next, the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington insider, Gretchen Gailey. What you got for us today?
Good afternoon, Rico. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment. And the moment we've all been waiting for, President Biden discusses marijuana with Senate candidate Fetterman at Labor Day meeting. President Joe Biden and Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman briefly discussed marijuana policy reform during a meeting near Pittsburgh yesterday. Two campaign spokesmen told Marijuana Moment. Fetterman, a U.S. Senate candidate and longstanding cannabis legalization advocate, called on Biden to take executive action to decriminalize cannabis days ahead of the meeting. His campaign initially said that he intended to discuss marijuana reform with Biden when they were expected to cross paths at a Labor Day parade. The president did not end up attending the march, but the two men met before Biden's speech at a union hall later in the day. Fetterman staffers confirmed to Marijuana Moment that the two elected officials discussed potential changes to marijuana status under the Controlled Substances Act. Fetterman Communications Director Joe Covello said in a statement that during their talks, Fetterman continued to advocate for the president to use his executive authority to begin the process of rescheduling marijuana so that people convicted of nonviolent offenses can go on with their lives. A different spokesperson told Marijuana Moment that the discussion went further and touched on complete descheduling of cannabis, which would represent a broader policy change more aligned with the lieutenant governor's stance than that of the president, who has only expressed support for rescheduling so far. Without a full readout of the discussion, there are currently few details about the nature of the conversations, including how Biden responded to the Senate's candidate pleas for cannabis action. However, a campaign spokesperson for Fetterman previously said that the state official planned to talk about the need to finally decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, a policy that Biden has said he supports, but has yet to take any action on. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the Fetterman campaign's initial statement during a briefing last week. She said that the administration didn't have anything to announce at this point, and instead talked generally about the president's focus on addressing the addiction and overdose epidemic, his commitment to having evidence-based policies in place, and his ongoing belief that people shouldn't be incarcerated over nonviolent drug offenses. She pointed to Biden's clemency actions in April when he commuted sentences of 75 people, many of whom had nonviolent federal drug convictions on their records. But she said there's no specific update she can share about the president's plans to reform federal marijuana policy or issues mass clemency for people with cannabis records, as he promised to do on the president campaign trail. For those of you who can't read between the lines, I can tell you exactly how this conversation went. Fetterman went up to his good old pal, Joe Biden, and said, "We need to deschedule or bust." And that's how he's going to pretend that they talked about descheduling. Joe Biden said, "Fuck no, not going to do it. You're out of your goddamn mind." Then they decided to talk about rescheduling because they won't talk about descheduling. Joe Biden said, "I'm sorry, I got to go talk to people who will actually vote for me. Have a nice day." This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
Gretchen, I love that live play-by-play of the conversation because I imagine it going extremely similar to that. But I don't think that Fetterman, because in all the articles, Fetterman keeps mentioning rescheduling. So, yes, I hear you. So I just think, though, that he only started with rescheduling and didn't ever mention descheduling in the first place.
Are we officially CNN fanboys and fangals now? Like Joe Biden has conversation with John Fetterman on cannabis.
It's news, bro. It's big news. Big news.
I mean, isn't it sad we're at that point as a fucking industry? We just want this motherfucker to say anything. The first time,
we've been following the story for like almost 2 weeks.
I know, but the first time,
and this is basically the climax. This is the bell at the ball, and Gretchen given the inside tale of what really happened in real life.
Yes,
I just imagined the climax of this being so much dirtier than that right now. It got real. It got real in my head. I just want to let you guys know.
What if Joe Biden gets back to Washington and he just forgets the whole conversation even happened?
I mean, hold on a second, bro. Who says that he has to leave the state in order to do that?
Well, Trump's not on his side, so Trump's saying he looks like he lives in his parents' basement and smokes weed, and so like, you know.
was the meeting?
I think we just lost Gretchen.
Basement? I think we did too. I'm pretty sure this she'll come back.
Well, she will, but we're tight on time today. So let's hop to our next story before we hear any more of Joe Biden coming on the back of America.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Oh man. Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe. Coming up next to the stage, she's a Florida-based entrepreneurial boss lady leading the charge for the ultimate cannabis lifestyle brand, Black Buddha Cannabis. Also the founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. It is none other than the Roz McCarthy.
Good morning, Jason. Good morning, family. Glad to be here. My article is coming from Marijuana Moment. California governor signs bill protecting medical cannabis patients from healthcare discrimination. This is by Kyle Yeager. Jason, we have Dr. Barry Gordon and Chris Cano out of Florida who are also dealing with these same issues. So please let them come up and kind of share insight after I'm done with the story, and I'll make it as quick as possible. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed another pair of marijuana reform bills, including one that provides protections for medical cannabis patients against discrimination in healthcare. Ahead of the end of legislative session last week, lawmakers delivered a number of cannabis measures to the governor in the final push. On Friday, Newsom signed AB 1954 from Assembly Member Bill Quirk and SB 988 from Senator Ben Huso. The former legislation makes it so doctors cannot discriminate against patients by denying medication or treatment based on positive THC tests if the person is a registered medical cannabis patient in the state. It further stipulates that medical professionals can't be penalized for administering treatment to a patient who uses medical marijuana in compliance with state law. Advocates say this is necessary to clear up confusion among physicians about how to manage patients' treatment who test positive for THC. Some patients have reported being cut off from opioid prescriptions for pain because they use medical cannabis. Many physicians are under the mistaken impression that they cannot prescribe medication to patients who test positive for cannabis. Larry Bedard, a physician, added that it is irresponsible and unethical for pain management programs to eliminate patients who are using medical cannabis for chronic pain because there is a conclusive scientific evidence that cannabis is a safe and effective treatment for chronic pain. The second bill that Newsom signed ahead of the Labor Day weekend would amend an existing law that permits registered patients to use medical marijuana products at hospitals. It would repeal a provision that currently requires that healthcare facilities permitting patient use of medical cannabis comply with other drug and medication requirements. The bill would require a health facility to require a patient or primary caregiver, as defined, to be responsible for acquiring, retrieving, administering, and removing medical cannabis, and would require medicinal cannabis to be stored securely at all times, the measure summary says. The bill would require the patient or the patient's primary caregiver to, upon discharge, remove all remaining medicinal cannabis, and if a patient cannot remove the medicinal cannabis and does not have a primary caregiver, would require the storage of the product in a locked container until it is disposed of. That bill by itself, and I just want to make a quick commentary, especially for patients that are dealing with end of life in hospice, that bill could support so many caregivers who are wanting to administer and give those patients cannabis, especially at end of life. Last week was very, very busy. For example, lawmakers sent the governor a bill that would ensure medical cannabis patients across the state have access to delivery services, ending the current policy that allows individual jurisdictions to ban any marijuana licensing types from operating in their area. Senator Scott Wiener is the sponsor of that proposal. He and other advocates have argued that the legislation will both improve patient access and help fill voids throughout the state where no cannabis licensing types have been authorized, causing complications for patients and creating an incentive for illicit suppliers. Activists were also pleased to see a measure providing employment protections for most workers who use marijuana off the job clear the legislature last week after earlier stalled in committee in past sessions. So there's lots of movement in California. As I wrap this up, and literally there's a rundown of other different bills that Newsom will soon act on. SB 1326 would set the stage to allow for interstate marijuana commerce. AB 2188 would make it unlawful for an employer to discriminate against a person in hiring, termination, or any term or condition of employment, or otherwise penalize a person solely because of off-duty marijuana use. SB 1186 would prohibit a local jurisdiction from adopting or enforcing any regulation that prohibits the retail sale by delivery within a local jurisdiction of medical cannabis to medicinal cannabis patients. AB 1706 is meant to enhance justice reform provisions of the state's marijuana law by mandating that courts to process record sealing and other forms of relief for people with eligible cannabis convictions on their records in a specific time frame. AB 2595 would make it so that when a social worker is investigating an alleged case of child abuse or neglect, a parent or guardian use of or possession of cannabis is treated in the same manner as a parent's or guardian use of possession of alcohol and legally prescribed medication. This list goes on, guys. I don't have enough time to go over it, but I would love to have and hear from Dr. Gordon or Chris Kano just on the importance of these type of bills for medical patients and how this is a priority, not only to be in California and other states as well, especially in Florida, which has so many medical patients. I'm Roz McCarthy signing off for High News at 9. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
We have both of them here in the room, Roz. And so, Dr. Berry, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, hey, Roz. Thanks for the shout out in Clubhouse World. Good to be back. Yeah, I'm on Monday. We've been out for a while, though. Listen, in contrast to Governor Newsom, we have a governor here in Florida, Governor DeSantis, who is the exact opposite, who is not really allowing for progressive reforms in our cannabis movement. And in fact, everybody, and like I said, I've been out and haven't really heard the chatter. There was a significant change to the Florida medical cannabis program last Friday. It was announced at 2:30 in the afternoon, much to the consternation of both patients and doctor clinics. We found out the same time as the patients were finding
I'm
out.
so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have to keep it to the headline. We're currently Roz's headline is about Governor
The point is, we
California.
don't have a friendly environment. I got it. We don't have a friendly environment in Florida. So we're going the exact opposite. We just had restrictions placed on our program in Florida. I will be participating in a noon news conference at 10 o'clock.
We definitely appreciate that, but we're real limited on time today, doctor.
To fight for the rights of patients to continue to use their cannabis appropriately.
And that's the genesis of having Dr. Gordon and having a state like California, you guys. That's not normal to see that type of progressive legislation that's protecting patients. And Chris Kano, I know you've been talking about employee protection. How important is having a bill like employee protection critical? And how exciting is it to see a governor sign off on something like this, like in California?
Well, it makes California the 7th state in total. You got to think, with 38 states having medical marijuana laws, the fact that only 7 now protect people's livelihoods, it's not enough that people are not going to jail, but you have to protect their livelihoods. And, other things that were signed into law in California, a big one is that parents' right bill. The fact that, child services won't be taking people's kids away because they're cannabis users. And then lastly, people not losing their medical treatment that they're on. One of the big things that still needs to be codified is people being kicked off the organ transplant list for being medical marijuana patients. So there's still work to do, even in a progressive state like California. But we appreciate all the progress that's been made through the General Assembly and through the governor signing that to set the way for other states like Florida to move forward.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys so much. Any other comments from my colleagues? Any thoughts?
I definitely just wanted to echo the conversation about parents and children. That being something that is a huge issue in almost every state with regulated cannabis. There's very few states that treat cannabis as it should be being treated, the same way that you would treat really alcohol, as far as whether or not a parent uses it. And so that's something that I think is really important to follow up on, as well as the medical treatment as well.
I believe,
but we are definitely running a little short on time today for stories, so I want to make sure that we hop, because we have 2 more correspondents today. But thank you so much, Roz, and the doctors, for coming up. And sorry for cutting you guys short, but we're a little packed in today. But up next, we have Liz Rogan. Liz is our data-loving, Santa Barbara-based East Coast transplant educator. She's a brand strategist, healthcare consultant, and the founder of the Cannabis Business Council of Santa Barbara County. Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. What do you have for us?
Thank you, Nicole. Greetings, everyone. Happy Toasty Tuesday. Thanks for joining us here at High at 9 News. My story today comes from News Medical Life Sciences, reviewed by Emily Henderson. The headline reads, high-quality human clinical trials needed to determine the benefits of CBD for heart disease patients. This research will be presented at the ACC Latin America 2022 conference in Mexico City on September 9th. So as CBD use rises, high-quality randomized human clinical trials are needed to determine if anti-inflammatory benefits of CBD for heart disease, as seen in the preclinical data, will work in a real-world setting, according to Mario Esteban Ayala, who is a cardiology fellow and the study's primary author. He's basically saying, look, CBD and medical cannabis use has increased considerably in the last decade. Nonetheless, there are few indications for its use based on good clinical trials. Here, they're looking to provide preclinical evidence, which ultimately serves as a cornerstone to establishing well-designed clinical trials in humans to provide the efficacy of CBD on coronary symptoms with strong scientific evidence. The review of the existing studies found no clinical recommendations can be given for the current evidence. As we know, CBD has substantial evidence for a plethora of conditions, including pain, nausea, vomiting, MS, spasticity, and epilepsy. Its pharmacological profile shows it's safe and well tolerated in humans, although it does have side effects. But the interaction with other medications, often used by cardiologists, such as anticoagulation and antiplatelet drugs, is not well known. The researchers say the trends indicate that cannabis is the most used substance compared to other drugs like cocaine and heroin. And as usage grows, many heart disease patients may consider using these products. Due to the anti-inflammatory properties of CBD, the study sought to examine its potential role in reducing myocardial ischemia, a condition which reduced blood flow to the heart can result in chest pain, heart failure, and heart attack, as the heart's working harder to pump the blood and the oxygen. The researchers used the preferred reporting items for systemic reviews and meta-analysis guidelines to perform a systematic review of PubMed databases up to April 2022. So they have looked at some recent stuff. 9 preclinical studies were included in the review, but no quality randomized control trials for the use of CBD were found. So a review of the 9 preclinical studies found reproducible cardiovascular outcomes with CBD. Some of the mechanisms for the findings included reduction in oxidative stress and inflammation, which is huge. CBD also showed promising results in experimental models of ischemia, myocardial infarction, arrhythmias. And they say the preclinical evidence on CBD is robust enough to propose well-designed clinical trials in human settings. But always ask, like they encourage anyone, like ask about your doctor about interactions with your previously prescribed medications, and do not suspend any drug prescribed by your physician. They're saying clinicians should be aware of the unreliable purity and dosage of CBD in products, because a recent study I know that Nicole just talked about, 84 CBD products bought online showed more than a quarter of the products contained less CBD than labeled, and THC was found in 18 of the products. So the thing is, this has been a big, like the news, the heart attack thing, and cannabis is just such a big thing. And I really think that, you know, there's obviously, I'd love to hear what the doctors have to say on this, but I do think that, you know, this is something we should really address realistically. And I know it does affect your cytochrome P450, which can definitely affect some processing and release into your body of medication. But regardless, I think this is stuff we know. Hopefully we'll have human trials coming. And I'm Liz Rogan, getting high at 9 with you guys. And what do you have to say? I know we're short on time.
Real quick, I think this is a positive. I think there's a positive blowback from the globalization effort of legalization of cannabis, because we can no longer hide behind the bullshit reefer madness media, which is the American Heart Association, which their biggest donor is Big Beef. And these motherfuckers are saying they're the ones that have been really pumping money behind the effort to say that cannabis and smoking weed causes heart disease. Like red meat does not.
Oh boy, that's a whole can of worms right there. I'm
Follow the
wondering if
fucking money.
I'm wondering if Dr. Mary Clifton or Dr. Felicia Dawson have any comments on this, since they are the doctors in the room today.
I'll let Dr. Mary go first, since I think Liz reached out to her, so I'll go after her.
Go ahead, Dr. Felicia. I don't see Dr. Mary unmuting her mic, so.
Well, I would agree that we need more human studies in using CBD and cannabis. The preclinical stuff doesn't always translate into humans, and so that's important to know. And what's also important is that until we can get cannabis deregulated, it's going to still be continuing efforts. It's going to be difficult for people to do the research. And it's very important that they use botanical extract, not just synthetics, because synthetics, which is what most researchers only have to use because they can't get their hands on the real stuff, bind to the receptors much more strongly than the botanical does. So it's really important to use what people are using instead of synthetics, because not only do the synthetics bind more intensely to the receptor, some of their metabolites do. That's especially true for CBD. Botanical CBD does not have metabolites that are active. Synthetic CBD does. So that's an important thing to remember as they do their research.
Dr. Felicia, do you think there are rogue doctors out there doing their own experiments with real weed and not using the synthetics, and they're just waiting for legalization to catch up so they can release their findings?
I'm say yes, because rogues exist in every space.
Oh yes,
And
Dr. Mary Clifton.
Thanks so much. Sorry about not being able to get to my microphone, but there's good data on reduction of arrhythmia after a heart attack. Typically if you have a heart attack and it takes you out, if you die from it, it's because your heart went into an arrhythmia, like an abnormal rhythm that doesn't support life. Instead of squeezing it, in a very consistent way and moving the blood forward, it moves around like a bag of worms, and then the blood doesn't flow. So prevention of arrhythmia reduces heart attack death, and we don't have enough data yet on people who show up in the hospital already using cannabis before they had their heart attack, but to say for sure it reduces death. But we do know that it reduces arrhythmias following heart attacks. So I think we just need to gather a few more numbers before we can say that it actually reduces heart attack death. And that's fascinating.
I just want to say I'd be really bummed if I was one of the people in the study that got the placebo. Because, in order to do good studies, you have to have the control and you have to have the placebo group. And you're like, yeah, I'm signing up for the weed study. And then you get the placebo. And you're like,
But they didn't have, I
Well,
don't think they didn't have a placebo group here.
Harm on that, because what are you going to do? How are you going to get them giving them weed? All the placebo people would know they were placebos.
To my
It's funny
understanding, the
people,
University of
when people smoke
Mississippi,
CBD think it's real weed.
well, the University of Mississippi's placebo cigarettes have everything, all the cannabinoids in it except for THC. So it's not complete, just nothing. So it is. I found that interesting that their placebo cigarettes just don't have THC. That's it.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm going to come out with a cannabis line and call it placebo.
Oral fixation.
Placebo. And we'll get all the government contracts to supply the weed because we're already the placebo weed.
Plethora.
I'll be the doctor that supports that line. That's fantastic.
I love it. I love it. Look, we already have a doctor's endorsement for the placebo line.
Placebo effects.
And thank you. And Dr. Mary, please check your DMs. We need you to reach out to us. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Our next correspondent does it. Our next correspondent does it all. She's a patient, plant medicine advocate, and founder of Purple Plant Magic. When not handling business as Roz McCarthy's right hand on the left coast for M4MM, she's Power 88 Las Vegas's encyclopedia Wednesday mornings and has been an outspoken supporter of Purple Lives Matter initiatives in Clark County. Bringing us home today, you know who it is, Nichole Buffon. What you got for us?
Oh, thanks, Rico, for that wonderful introduction. My story is coming from the San Diego Union Tribune, but it's about Venezuela. And the armed forces, this by Regina Garcia Cano from the Associated Press. But the armed forces of Venezuela announced yesterday what they characterized as the largest marijuana bust of the last 10 years in South American country. Members of the armed forces on Saturday intercepted a vessel carrying more than 3.1 U.S. tons of marijuana, almost 18 pounds of cocaine, and extra outboard boat motors off Venezuela's Caribbean coast. He added that the vessel, the general added that the vessel had departed Colombia and was en route to the island of Martinique. 12 men traveling on the boat were arrested. Hernandez said all are Venezuelans and were working for the Colombia-based cartel of the Guajira. Am I saying that right? I don't know. Nearly 6,293 pounds of marijuana were seized from the boat, which lacked identification and had 7 extra motors. I don't know what that means, motors, as well as 33 large storage containers with fuel and a satellite phone. So that's everything that they found. The arrests and seizures were part of special operations of the armed forces across Venezuela's border. Soldiers in the area have also seized makeshift buildings that store fuel for airplanes used by drug traffickers who land in nearby illegal runways. Since 2012, they've seen that this is the most important stash of marijuana. And also, since 2012, we have disabled 305 airplanes, 27 of them being this year, with a lot of intelligence and prevention against micro trafficking and macro trafficking, because this is another exponential sum as well. Hernandez and his team on Monday showed reporters the drugs, fuel tanks, and boats at a beachside campsite in the community of Tiraya, set up for the area's special operation. 2 large helicopters, military vehicles, tents, and dozens of armed soldiers were also at the site. Hernandez said more than 40 tons of illegal drugs have been seized so far this year in Venezuela. And that is up by almost 30% compared to the same period last year. These stories of all of these big seizures all over, wherever they might be in the UK or Venezuela, headed to another place that is illegal, where the plant is still illegal, it just doesn't make sense to me. If everywhere just legalized it, then we wouldn't have this issue, and it wouldn't be making headline news. Let's talk about the lives that we're saving by using cannabis, instead of the lives that are being destroyed by the illegal distribution of it. So that's my 2 cents. This is Nicole Buffon reporting for High at 9 News.
Hey, Nicole, Hugo Chavez died 9 years ago, and the largest pot bust prior to this one was 10 years ago. Do you think there's a connection?
No, absolutely there's a connection.
I don't know.
It's
I'm
just a
willing to
different
bet
cartel,
that this wasn't even
right?
really weed. I'm willing to
Whatever
bet
it
that it was
was,
probably like hemp. It was probably all of that hot hemp.
whatever it was worthy of them, splashing their headlines, and making sure that
Do we know if it was like do we know if it was like green bud or if it was like brown compressed?
They didn't
like
show
old
any other
weed all
picture.
together?
Everything was sealed up. They didn't show
Was
any
it
pictures.
traditional growing techniques and packaging techniques, or were it more updated version?
So basically, this is like a dog and pony show, right? This is just them trying. Yo, we're doing something.
Right. Absolutely. If this is the biggest buzz
play out before. You're right.
So then Colombia's moving in on Venezuela too, right? I mean, they're moving in on that.
Colombia, Panama, Venezuela, all of them back in the game.
The thing that got me was all the motors on the boat. Like, because I saw this like Coast Guard thing, and they had like 7 motors on their boat, and I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, how fast can that thing go? And he's like, 90 miles an hour. It's never outrun like a Panga, or a Panga's never outrun it yet. And they were just like, I was like, holy shit! So these guys got some serious freaking
It's interesting that they mentioned that they have seized buildings or building parts. I'm not sure what that meant. That was also stashing,
stripping them for copper.
Fuel.
Like, I feel like
module buildings, maybe like they had like a whole like
they were hiding fuel in these buildings that they were using on illegal airstrips. It was
gnarly.
They're fuel reserves. They're extra tanks of gas.
Yeah, international drug smugglers use like boat motors, like white boys in college use pop collars.
All right. Well, that was a very interesting story, Nicole. Thank you so much for bringing that to us. We are right at 10 a.m. Thank you guys all for tuning in. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., high noon on the East Coast. Thank you to our sponsors, our audience, and our supporters. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us, and to the lovers for having the morning quickie while listening to us. I hope we were also on your TV. Thank you to the correspondents for being absolutely fucking amazing. Thank you to Weed for helping us be funnier. Thank you to 3 is 4 for being awesome, trippy house cats, helping us sound like we know what we're doing. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. Run the outro music, guys.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.